Hi, everybody. How are you doing? This is African Queen Mo here with Susan, greeting you, saying hello.
Hello.
Hope you're all well. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. You know what? It is raining cats and dogs where we are here in Nairobi, Kenya. It's crazy. It's unbelievable. And it's Friday, TGIF. Yup, I love Fridays. Who loves Fridays? I was born on a Friday, by the way. Do you think that has any significance, Susan? The day that you're born?
I'm not sure. There's a poem about it, isn't it?
There's
Monday's
a point
child
about
is
it.
full of grace. Tuesday's child is something. Wednesday's child is full of war. Something like that. But I
Oh,
think
really? What
it's
the
just
heck
a,
is
yeah.
Friday's child? Oops. I just splashed some water on my face right now, by the way. I'm telling you, my throat is so dry. I cannot believe today was really sunny and hot. Anyway, welcome to the show, guys. We are coming to you from the beautiful, rainy, flooded city of Nairobi. It has been crazy. I've been looking at pictures of flooding, and I think I even downloaded one for you guys so that you can see. People are stranded, and they're saying that the problem is actually something to do with the gutters and not really about the amount of rain, but the fact that they actually haven't done a good job of clearing the gutters. And so there's a lot of flooding. And let's see this video here that I found. Excuse me. I have a problem with my throat, and I don't know why. I think it's just maybe it's just normal. I don't even know. Yeah, but anyway, basically, yeah, it's flooding. It's flooding. It's bad. It's bad. It's very bad. And the thing is that it's been raining consistently, and when it does this, I actually worry about it because I'm like, okay, so where are we going from here? You know. And I think I don't know why the video decided to hide away from me. After all the work I've done on you, video. Yeah. So, guys, today we have a very interesting topic. We're talking about how the economy and how the inflation indicators impacts on the security on our security, on everybody's security, and the fact that it looks like when you have situations of when you have situations where people are not sure about their current environment, then they take it out on whoever is near them, and unfortunately this is a situation here because people cannot take it out on the big politicians, so they take it out on each other, and it's just unfortunate. Yeah. Oh, I finally found it, by the way. Yeah, somebody actually took a video of what's going on in Nairobi with the rain. But just take a look, guys. Take a look. Wow. That's our beautiful Nairobi. People are stuck. People are afraid of the rain in Nairobi. I'm going to talk over this video a bit because you're not talking much. Oh, he's talking. Basically, Nairobians fear the rain more than anything else. So they're going to shelter under. Let's see what this guy is saying. The guy is saying something. Let me move it a bit forward. It's a bit long. It's where he says that the gutters yeah, it's just some random guy just decided just to take this video, and we thank him for that because every Kenyan has a camera, so they take video footage of what's going on. Sorry to talk over the video, guys, but it's just to show you that it's raining very heavily here in Nairobi, and I know a lot of people are gonna get stuck on the roads. It's very dangerous when you start seeing those heavy clouds. You better get home, guys. Susan, what do you think? Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of traffic. It's really backed up. I know somebody who's been stranded at Wilson Airport. She can't get a cab. They can't get to her. They're saying it's too far. There's too much rain. and stuff like that. So it's been a very challenging evening, uh, especially for travelers, people still on the road. Yeah, so we hope they all get home safe. Um, in the circumstances, and
Yeah.
you're right about the blocked drains. And it's also something to do with the buildings, how they've been built. I think they're not following the rules when they're building, so they're blocking certain, they're blocking pathways for the drainage to flow. So there's a big infrastructural issue that's causing the flooding. And you're right, it's not about how much rain there is. Though it's a lot, but it should be able to flow.
Yeah, and you wonder to yourself for how long, we're going to be in this because by the way, it rains so heavily when let's say, you who went to school abroad in the UK, it rains like every single day. Yeah, that means that that country should be completely flooded, isn't it? So why is it that just a little tiny bit of rain would just render us all the roads impassable? It goes to show that the governor of Nairobi is not doing his job. He hasn't done a good job of clearing the drains. Normally, before the rainy season or the rainy weather, you see a lot of people clearing the drains because, by the way, this is a risk to human life. Really, it is. Yeah, I've seen in some cases, like today, there's a road that I used, and I was really upset because that road it's a bypass, and it's just recently been built, and there are all these trucks cutting squares in the beautiful tarmac. At there, what do they say? Something to do with, I don't know, a top over. Meanwhile, there's a road just next, which is completely dilapidated. Part of it is tarmac, part of it is just rocks. Other parts is grass. And they've ignored that one and they're fixing this other one. It's so irritating. I'm like, why are you guys damaging a road? I said, this one, there's some money that's been allocated to this road. This is like somebody pretending to be fixing a road. I'm like, that money could have been better used to actually cover a different road. I mean, it's unfortunate. This particular government has been very, very ineffective with development, especially with our roads, because they had done a very good job. The last two regimes have really worked really hard on the roads, so we really expected much better this particular time around. Yeah, hi Lynn and hi Fia,
You
welcome on
know,
board. I'm just responding here a bit. Lynn is
welcome.
on. Yeah, there's Lynn
Yeah,
Robertson, Chase, and there's also Fia E. Hey, Fia. Hi. Evening, Fia. Yeah, climate change is getting so scary all around the world. That is true. That is true, Lynn, because I know that also in the UK it's the same situation. But anyway, Susan, go ahead.
yeah. The issue about the roads, it's because um, why you can see one road being fixed and the other one not, is because they fall under different regimes. So, for instance, there's the Kenha, which is the highways, and then there's the county government, which takes care of the some other roads. So you'll find, so one organization is taking better care of the roads than the other, and that's why you find a difference. Uh, you know, we discovered that from where I live, that they're actually two different, you know,
So there are two
people
different
looking after the
institutions
road.
competing. What shouldn't all the roads just be
No,
under the Kenya National Highways Authority or whatever it's called?
not all of them. The ones that the main roads are under Kenya, and then there's some which are under the county government. So as you can see, I mean the budgets allocations are also different and stuff like that. So for here where we live, we had to talk to the county government to try and fix our road. Um, but another part of the estate is under Kenya, so that road is in good condition, but one and the other part is not. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Very amazing. Yeah, exactly. Politicians need to do their jobs, Lynn. I agree. That's what Lynn is saying. Politicians need to start doing their jobs. But the question is, many of them actually come there to eat. Yeah. For them, it's their time to eat. And it's unfortunate because they would have actually done something and leave a legacy. These days, the idea of leaving a legacy, I don't know. Many people don't really care about their reputations. Anyway, let's get on to the main subject of today, which is about the economy and inflation and security and GBV. That's gender based violence. By now, you know that. We are now on, I believe, what day are we on, Susan? I can't even keep count anymore. We're on day 5, literally. We're five. Is it day 5 or 4? 16, 15, 14, 13. Yeah, day 5. Yeah, we're on day 5. So we have 15 days left. How many days left? We have 11 days left. Is it? We have 11 days left.
Yeah.
And
Um,
yeah, yeah. Basically,
up to
basically,
10th of December.
yes,
Up to
exactly.
10th
Yeah.
of December. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I see that a lot of the media stations are actually covering gender-based violence issues, which is good. Um, Although it just seems like they're touching on the issues and it's not really drawing the crowd. A lot of people are not really interested in discussing these issues because I believe, they think it's not interesting. Maybe they'd rather watch soccer, forget about it. It's too painful. Or they probably think that it's petty. It's so part of the society that it's just like petty. It's like, what are you guys people complaining about? Didn't we just, if you have a car and you have food in your stomach and your rent is paid and your children are going to school, what are you complaining about? Same thing with a woman would probably be asking the man, am I not still married to you? So what? Yeah, if I abuse you. So what's the big deal? What do you mean I'm abusing you? I'm just talking to you. Yeah, take it or leave it. I really think that we take our relationships a little bit too lightly. And that's one of the problems. And right now, let me tell you guys, this thing has hit home. One of somebody who I know very, very well, her friend just lost a daughter who was graduating from one of the universities. This lady, who is a friend of my friend, um, she she she's a widow. So she lost her husband and she has only two daughters. The first daughter graduated and she's an intern now. And the second daughter graduated and she was supposed to be attending her graduation day. And so that friend called my friend and she says, you know what? I'm going to attend the graduation of my daughter and I'm going to invite you for a graduation party very soon. And then what happened is that that friend tried to call her daughter to schedule, where am I going to meet you within the graduation grounds, where we're going to meet. And her phone went off. And within an hour, the next thing she's hearing is that her body has been found in a river. This is the situation that we're facing right now. This thing has come home. It's so close that I actually said, look, I want to meet that lady and I actually want to do this interview. But not now. Of course, not now. One has to be, sensitive. But I
Yeah.
can't believe that it's come
Yeah.
this close. Yeah, it's really a serious matter. So my poor friend is so
Mhm.
distraught for her friend because both of them are now single women and they're both widows and now there they are, they've struggled so hard to educate their daughters and now they're gone just like that. And I was looking for that story in the media. I didn't see it highlighted anywhere. And that goes to show that
Mhm.
there's underreporting actually of the situation because that story should have been in the media.
What's the name? Do
I
you
don't
know
know
the
her
name?
name, but I don't have her names right now, but I will get it. I will get
Mm.
it. But I looked at
Yeah.
that time I had the names and I was looking and I couldn't find the story. I was just looking for a story of
Mhm.
a girl whose body has been found in a river, actually in
Yeah.
Meru County. Yeah.
Okay.
Chania. Yeah.
That's there
So it's
too.
actually an issue.
Mm.
Yeah. No,
Mm. There are
Chuka,
two,
University in
Nyeri and
Chuka.
Muranga.
The university in
Mm.
Chuka.
Oh dear.
Yeah. She graduated from a
Oh dear.
university there. But I'm going to come back with more
Oh.
details because this is actually really sad. I mean, it's just too much. Aye. We
Yeah.
are observing. We're doing 16 days of activism against GBV, and people are being unalive just like that. Wow, they're not stopping. They're not stopping, and it's all young
Mm.
ladies of reproductive age. We just covered the silent victims who are men, and now we have the situation with women. It's very sad, by the way, guys. Meanwhile, the government is busy reporting fantastic figures of the economy. Unless you wanted to say something, Susan, you want to say something about that, about the chuka, or should continue talking about the economy? Yeah.
No,
Okay. Yeah, but
there were
the
two
economic indicator.
reports.
Yeah.
Femicide.
Okay. Two reports
Two.
of
Two.
femicides
There's
this week.
yeah. Yeah. Christine Gesare, 20 years old. Nyeri, stabbed. Muranga, mother of three, head and hand injury. Christine it was unalived, but the mother of three has survived. She was stabbed by her ex-husband, but Christine was stabbed by her intimate partner. Was unalived by her intimate partner. So it's
Yeah.
still going on, and you know. notwithstanding the fact that we're going through this, there's a lot of information, like you said, on the media about feminism, femicide, and
Hmm.
it's still happening. So people are not, really paying attention, and maybe it means that the government needs to be more thorough and more strict when it comes to even the way they're handling the cases. They should do them with speed, and they should not be. They should give stiff sentences, which should help as a deterrent. So it's still happening, and I'm sure these are the ones that were reported. And you were talking about Meru. I've just told you about Nyeri and Muranga. Yeah. So the
Wow.
statistics, by the way, are
Nyeri
very
and
interesting.
Moranga and
Yeah.
Meru, you guys, they're not far from each other. They're in the central, kind of central Kenya, isn't it? You'd call
Yeah.
that part of
Mount
central
Kenya
part of
region.
Kenya.
Yeah.
Mount Kenya region. Yeah. Very sad.
Mm-hmm.
Very sad. Somebody should do an analysis of the geography. Where are these femicides happening? What are the age groups? Somebody needs to be actually doing that study because it's very serious. Somebody needs to fund it. Yeah, the government should fund it because this is serious. This is really, really bad. I know many parents are not sleeping when their children are going to classes. They're not. Parents of girls, really, young women of reproductive age. Why? This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable, really. This is just so annoying. Anyway, Lynn is saying this
Yeah.
is so sad. I'm
The
an
KDH.
American and have a lot of Kenyan
Yeah.
friends. I like keeping up
Yeah.
on Kenyan news, sending my prayers for these victims. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you very much. Fia is saying it's really sad. Yeah, all of us are traumatized by this. It's not
Yeah.
normal. Yeah. And why is the
So
government
some
quiet about
sad.
this? Why are they not talking about it
Mm-hmm.
enough? Hey.
It's
Oh,
a
so
national problem.
irritating.
The KDHS survey of 2022, the highest percentage, this is physical violence, is 62, is Bungoma with 62.2, and the lowest was Mandera with 9. So it's a national problem. So I tried to get, like 4 of the highest and 4 of the lowest, and then the cities. So Bungoma has, say, 62%, Homa Bay has 54, Migori 51, and Muranga 52%. And then the lowest, Mandera 9, Kitui 12, Kwale 13, Wajir 13. And the cities, because I thought, let me just check. This is just the physical violence. Nairobi, the highest was Kisumu with 36%, and then Nairobi with 30%, and then Mombasa with 25%, and Nakuru with 24%. So you can see uh, the highest is 62%, right? So um,
For the sake of the
the
viewers, you
cities
want to
in the
Susan,
high to,
Susan. For the
yeah,
sake of viewers, when you mention percentages once in a while, just mention what you actually, because people will join us at different points. So maybe you can say 62% of this and repeat like what you're mentioning the percentages about. Just imagine that people are just coming in at any point. Yeah, I know you're kind of,
yeah.
yeah,
So
you get it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so this is the Kenya demographic health survey of 2022, and we're looking at the experiences of physical violence among women in the counties. And the reason why I brought this up was just to show
Uh-huh.
it's a national problem, because all counties have reported physical violence. Women have reported physical violence. They have experienced it, and that poster shows the range that of the
Mhm.
questions. The slapping, the kicking, the pulling of the hair, the throwing,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
punching. Of course, it gets more extreme and more extreme, and finally femicide. And all that. So the highest percentage, the highest percentage of femicides reported the violence, the physical violence in all its degrees is happening,
Mhm.
is Bungoma, which is at
Mhm.
62%.
Mhm.
62% of the ladies, of the people who were responding to the survey in Bungoma said
Mhm.
it was they've experienced physical violence. And then
Yeah.
the county with the lowest figure was Mandera, which was 9%. So it just tells
Mhm.
you that it's happening nationally. Then we had
Yeah.
the cities. Kisumu scored the highest, which is 36%. So it appears that the physical violence is sort of higher out in the counties, some counties, and sort of in the middle range for Nairobi, for the cities. And then
Mhm.
I think, I'm not sure. I think as the areas with less population, like Mandera, Kitui, Kwale, and Wajir, uh, reports of physical violence were low. Yeah,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
women who had
Mhm.
experienced physical violence uh, was lower than in certain areas, and it could have something to do with the customs and the tradition of the various areas. Like Bungoma, it's the highest in the country, and
Mhm.
then Homa Bay, and then Migori, and then Moranga. Yeah, so be interesting to really get into the details, and I think has something to do with
The
you know
culture of violence. The
yeah.
culture of violence. Yes. Yes, the culture of violence. And I think it's also
Mm,
got to do with educational levels or even maybe religious beliefs. Because when I think about places like Mandera, Mandera is it should be mostly Muslim, isn't it? A place with
yeah,
high Muslim, yeah, high
Mandera,
Muslim. But then
Kwale.
theirs is low in terms of reporting of violence against women. And I think I can also
Yes,
say the same thing. Wife battery is not that common when where I think where I come from or where I live in Mombasa in coast. You don't hear much about it in the coast. Wife battery,
yeah,
yeah, because I think of religion. You know what people think about women and the roles of women and men are very very clear. I think that's another thing. The more emancipated, the more independent, the more or the more independent, or even or the opposite, or the more unindependent. You know what I mean? I think if women are very highly independent, then they also are at risk of instigating violence against themselves. And the same thing, that if they're also not at all aware, then it can also happen to them. So I think, I think we need to do a study about this to find out what, if you can cross tabulate the indicators and find out which is which. Yeah. Anyway, let's move from that because it's miserable. Today I asked somebody to join us and they said, "Oh, no, thanks. It's too miserable. There's already enough bad news out there." She's actually
yeah,
my relative. She's my cousin. I said, "Come on board. Let's, come and listen to us." And she's like, "Oh, no, thanks. What is the topic? Gender-based violence. Oh, no, thanks. It's too negative. It's too sad. I'm already sad."
yeah. But we need to talk about it so that this is the time to talk about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And the thing is, what I told her is, there's no point of burying your head in the sand because I know that you stay up late. There's no point of burying your head in the sand. These are things that are happening and they're causing the unalivement of people. This is serious.
yeah.
It's almost like going to war. It's like we're actually at war. There's somebody who actually said very nicely, I heard him say, and we will, this is a man who is he's a warrior against gender-based violence. And he was saying, here we are, our sisters and our mothers are getting unalived, and we're going on with business as usual, still waking up and pretending to go to work like everything is normal. Whereas we are actually
Citizen.
at some, yes, it's not normal.
Mm,
This is not
mm,
a normal affair. There should be something that tells women, why don't we all stay indoors for one day? How about that? How about no women
yeah.
go outside for a while? That's the kind of thing I would propose over the 16 days of whatever action against GBV,
Activism. Yeah.
activism, yeah, activism against yeah, GBV. Why don't we all just decide, all women are not going to go out today in protest?
Yeah.
We're just going to stay home, everybody, until we're sure that we are safe, until we're sure that all our girls are safe. No girls going to class, no women going out. That's it. Yeah, all women stay home with their
Yeah,
children. How about that? That's actually what we should do. We should be serious. But I don't think we have anybody who's serious enough, you know? This is a very good time for all women to just stay home because many children are actually on holiday. They're not even going to class. They're not going to school. Women should just stay home unless you're actually one of those women who have to go and earn a living for a day. Go and work, and then we all agree
mm,
on a specific day. We are all going to be home. No woman is going out in Kenya, period, until the government allocates funding to research or allocates funding to this issue, or we have gender desks, or we have a women's desk. And like we said,
yeah,
it's not just a women's issue,
yeah,
it's also a men's issue. That means
yeah,
it's a violation of the society. Yeah, why should we feel
yeah,
insecure going outside? It's just ridiculous.
mm,
This is Kenya, the country which has been so secure. We've been so
yeah,
proud at telling everybody to come visit our country, and then now we just have all these young ladies being unalived everywhere. Okay,
yeah,
Susan, should I do the news roundup or
yeah. Just carry on. But just let me
just care?
just say
Okay,
something before you
yeah,
start.
sure,
Um,
yeah, sure.
you can tell from the responses if you know when you see different cases and you go and check in the comment section. I like to do that sometime, and you can see from the comments people are making that there's definitely a need to create awareness on femicide, on gender-based violence. There's definitely a need for that. There, like we said the last time, it's like some of the comments are just cyber harassment, and victim blaming and all those things. So it's something that
Yes,
it's urgently needed. So,
absolutely,
okay, Maureen.
Susan.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, Susan. And in fact, on that very point, I'm even going to name people. I'm going to talk about mainstream media's very poor reporting on femicide. Very, very poor. This week, I heard a specific news anchor by the name Swale Mdoe on Swahili station. I think it's Citizen on Swahili News, actually mocking men who go to report that they have been beaten up or experience physical violence from a woman, from their wife. He laughed so wholeheartedly, and it was very unfortunate. He laughed until almost tears were coming out of his eyes, I'm telling you. He laughed so much. On national television, a whole news anchor, Swalem Doi, I'm calling you out. That was horrible. That was embarrassing. And I believe, this is a perfect example of what should not happen. He says, and he says it in Swahili and repeats it. He says, just imagine a man goes to a police station to report that he has been, twangwed by his wife. And he laughed, leaned back in his chair. A whole news anchor. A news anchor. What is it with the training? Obviously, he's not well trained, is he? That was really, really, really unfortunate. Again, I also saw a report online. It was actually a written report. Again, a major news station where they said they were giving that lady who had been stabbed, I believe it was, they were reporting on. And the particular article, the title was, There's obviously a mental health problem. This goes to show that this man had a mental health problem. Yeah. I'm like, you're reporting a crime, but already you're giving justification. You're already finding the reason. You're the judge, the jury, and the executioner all in one. Why don't you just report the crime just like it's a theft? Just like somebody stole a chicken. Why don't you just report that crime and not say, in addition to that, oh, this person stole a chicken? That goes to show the mental health problem of this man, that this man was facing mental health problems. Again, the issue of the lady at that video that came out of Shiko, you know, everybody has now decided that that is proof that this man has been hang out to dry for no good reason. It's really unfortunate because I believe the media anchors need to be retrained on how to report cases of gender-based violence against women and men.
Yeah,
Susan, I
it's
can see
it's
you want to say
it's
something.
a it's a whole It's all the actors who engaged, who need to be trained. They need to, even, with domestic violence or violence against women. If you try to interpret it through the wrong lens, you'll miss the signs. I don't know whether you remember the case of Gabby Petito. It was all over the world. I mean, we were watching it here, and she went missing. And there was a video of her. Uh, they had been stopped because they were fighting.
Remind us.
And
I remember you mentioned it before, Susan. Why don't you say it again for those who are listening? Gabby, and where she's from, which country?
yeah, she's
Mm-hmm.
from the US. Yeah, a young lady. She was going. It's called the van life sort of thing. So they were living in a van. They made a van into a little house, and so they were touring. She was touring with her boyfriend. Uh, you know, across visiting different parts of the US. And one time they were stopped because the car was being driven erratically, and the police stopped them. And they found that the two were fighting. Gabby was fighting, but before that, they had fought somewhere in the town, and people saw that. They saw it happening, and somebody called the cops and said, "There's a lady there who's being mishandled by a guy." So later on, further along the road, they were stopped. And what was so telling for me was how badly the police handled that case. At the end of that, um, her boyfriend strangled her, left her for dead, went back home in her car, the car. He went back home in the car. And he eventually went, and it's not clear what happened, but it was flooding in Florida. There was a lot of rain. And so in the park that he went to, he went in and he didn't come out, and they found like remains, and it's like he shot himself. So that's what you call murder suicide, a murder suicide, because after unaliving somebody, the person uh, also unalives themselves. So just an analysis, just the behavior of the two, and the people who the experts who know how to assess the signs were able to say, look, in gender-based violence, a woman can actually attack. She's not the aggressor, but she can attack also. So that doesn't mean that she's attacking to defend herself or out of so much frustration, but she's been subjected continuously to this system of violation, all types coming at her from different angles from the male. It could be verbal, it could
Mm-hmm.
be physical, some form of mental
Yeah.
torture. I mean, for instance, this young man actually had held her throat, tried to,
Mm-hmm.
several times.
Mm-hmm.
He done it. And yet the cops separated them, and saw her as the aggressor, because the guy said, oh, she has scratched me, she has done what, But people who know how to read the sign said that was a sign of, they should have separated those people, and he called the parents of Gabby
Mm-hmm.
and separated her completely from this man, because maybe you should be alive today if they had taken the right steps. So taking
Mm-hmm.
the right steps at the right time is what is so crucial in preventing um, and aliving femicide.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
something that is so crucial. Even familicide, the topic that we're going to talk about, is just recognizing those red flags and saying these people need to be separated right now. Because if we don't do something about it at this point, we won't like the results. And it's unfortunate that people don't get it. Even the comments they're making about Shiko, they're so unfortunate. Very, very nasty ones. And I hope she's not seeing them. Yeah, I hope she's not seeing them. Yeah.
Today I was watching. Thank you, Susan, for reminding me about that case. That was really interesting. Sad, sad. But if you're one of those people who watches these things, yeah, these things happen a lot in the. We used to hear about this a lot in the UK, but now it's come to Africa, nice and square. This morning I was listening to a mental health expert. She's an Asian lady on Spice FM, and she was talking about the reasons why the mental health crisis that we have in the country, and she was talking about the reason why there's violence. What is the main emotion that leads to violence? Can you tell me yourself? Can anyone tell me here in the comments? What is the main emotion? She asked the question herself, and of course, people answer different things. What is the emotion that leads to violence? Do you have any idea, Susan? The emotion, emotions, happy,
I guess
sad. Mm? What is it? What is it?
it's a
Frustration,
sense of deep
depression, what?
frustration.
Mm.
Yeah, deep frustration in not being able to communicate, or not being heard in a certain space, and that's why some of the tools are actually those tools of communication, and how to manage your anger better, and how to cope with stress, and how to speak in a way that, like the reverend said, uh, listen to understand. So, but that's a tool that you have to learn how to listen to understand. So I guess the biggest driver is the frustration, um,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
then it builds up.
Yeah.
It builds up
Mm-hmm.
over a while, over a period of time. But you know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the other ways of communicating, because violence is not a means of communication; it's a complete meltdown.
Mm-hmm. Actually, you're very close because you mentioned frustration, but actually, apparently, the main emotion that precedes violence is humiliation over a long period of time. If you're consistently humiliated, it leads to anger, which translates into violence, and that can translate eventually into murder, unaliving someone. So she gave examples of humiliation. For example, let's say it starts from when you're a child. You're humiliated, because she said that, for example, when it comes to teenagers, she said that teenagers are usually using their frontal cortex. What does they call it? In the brain. This is the part that thinks. That's what she said. She said this is the part that actually makes decisions, that can think, that's logical. The rest of the brain, when it comes to a child who is under the age, somebody who is under the age of 25, under the age of 25, is mostly emotional. And this is the reason why, this is what she explained, that this is the reason why teenagers are always looking in the mirror and saying, I'm too ugly. Look at my nose, it's too big. My face is too like this. I must be the worst person. Why was I? Even the most beautiful kid, even if they are a celebrity in the class, even if there's a prefect, they'll always find something wrong with themselves because they're so full, they're driven by emotion. So young people are driven by emotion up until the age of 25. Think about it, 25. If you think about the number of young people who have been unalived, many of them are under the age of 25. You've heard about a 19-year-old victim. Yeah. And many of these people are driven by emotion. They make emotional decisions because physically that is where they are. It's a physical thing. And apparently what she says is that is actually what you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be emotional up until you're that age. That's how we are created, to be emotional people. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's only good to know that a young person can't really make proper decisions until they're actually over the age of 25. And I thought to myself that was a very revealing, very useful lesson that I learned this morning. That, if you see a young girl, now you see this is the reason why the age of consent should be raised to as high as possible. The age of consent for sexual relation, for marriage, for all that should be raised for to at least 18 and above, if not even 21. In some countries, it's even up to age of 21. Yeah. Because people are not yet mature enough to make the right decisions until they're over the age of 25. And if you think about it, in Maasai culture, Maasai men are not actually supposed to get married before the age of 30. From around 28 going up, Maasai culture. And even the Kikuyu culture, in the Kikuyu culture, traditional culture, at least my late father used to tell me that for men, the suitable marriage age is above the age of 30, also for men, especially for men. So for men, it should be later. For women also, it shouldn't be too early because women are emotional beings. Yeah, at that age, they're emotional. And talking about age of consent, it's interesting because I actually did that research and I tried to find out globally what is the age of consent. Yeah, what is the age of consent? And it was
It
quite
differs.
interesting what I found out. It
Yeah,
really ranges and varies across the world.
yeah,
The age of
yeah.
consent. Let's see that. You guys can do this research yourself. It's all on social media. It's all in Google. Google is our friend, isn't it? Yeah. But anyway, who does the research unless you're looking for the information? Yeah. So basically, what it is that I was just shocked to find that there was a proposed bill that was going to lower the age of consent in some countries. Okay, so let me just see here. In Iraq, in Iraq, the age of consent. There's a proposed bill in parliament currently that wants to lower the age of consent from 18 to 9 years old. Think about that. That is a report by the Feminist Majority Foundation. So when you called a feminist because you're actually fighting a bill like this one, then you better just be a feminist. Because can you imagine the age of consent for a young woman being 9 years old? So the Iraqi parliament is facing mounting pressure from civil society, women's rights groups, and activists as it considers amendments to the personal status law that would drastically affect the rights and well-being of women and girls in Iraq. If passed, these amendments would lower the legal marriage age from 18 to as young as 9 years old for girls and boys, paving the way to widespread child marriages and eroding decades of progress in protecting women's rights. And I believe children's rights. In India, the age of consent is 18. That is defined by the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act, POCSO, of 2012. It used to be in India, it used to be 16. Okay. So the Indian Penal Code of 1860 and 2012 defined the age of consent now to be now 18 years old. And but then there are still some contradictions and sexual violence, going on still with younger children. It was actually very interesting to see the data and the statistics because, I mean, it was actually quite shocking. Yeah. In Europe, let's just see some of the other places. In Europe, most European countries, the age of consent is 15 or 16, but some countries diverge from the norm. So the set age in Spain, Romania, Switzerland, Finland, Netherlands, Norway, Luxembourg, Belgium is about 16. And then in France, Poland, Czech Republic, Sweden, Greece, Denmark, Iceland, it's at 15. And in Ireland, the age of consent is 17, and the Vatican is the continent's highest, which is 18. And it was raised from 12 in 2013. That means it was 12 in the Vatican, in Italy, guy, to 18. Yeah. So it's really amazing. And then there's some other countries where it's even lower. Albania, Austria, Hungary, Italy, Serbia, Germany, Montenegro, and Portugal all set their age of consent at 14. But in some of these countries, um, what they call Romeo and Juliet clause or close to age exemption applies. That means legal restrictions do not always apply to two consenting partners who are close in age. That means that young kids who are in teenagers who are experimenting, there would be no legal restrictions, against that. In North America, the age of consent, for example, in Canada is 16, irrespective of gender or sexual orientation. In the United States, it's between 16 and 18 and decided by each individual state. 31 of 50 states have set the age to 16, and the age is 17. And yeah, 11 of the states are 18. Yeah, so it's different states. So it's between 16 and 18 in the US and Canada. In Africa, South Africa, the age of consent is 16. But in South Africa, they say that if both the people are between 12 and 16, there'll be no criminal charges. So the age of consent is also 16 in countries such as Zambia, Namibia, and Ghana. Okay. And then the consent age is 18 for countries such as Zimbabwe, Swaziland, Uganda, South Sudan, Rwanda, Kenya, Ethiopia, Burundi. Age of consent is 16. In the DRC, it's very low. the age of consent is 14 for girls and 18 for boys. And in Madagascar also, it's 14. Yeah. And and for homosexual couples, it's 21. 21. And there's a very lower, much lower age of consent in the Comoros and Niger. It's only 12. Think about that. Libya, Morocco, Sudan, couples cannot have sex unless they're married. Yeah. In the Sudan, the legal age of consent is 12. In India, Asia and Oceania, in India, Vietnam, Lebanon, Turkey, the age of consent is 18. In China, it is 14. In China, guys, 14. My God. South America, the age of consent in South America, including Ecuador, Bolivia, Brazil, is 14. But in Chile and Argentina, the unrestricted age of consent is 18. Paraguay, the age of consent for heterosexual couples is 14. All gay sex is illegal under the age of 16. So, anyway, I'm done with that. But that was my little research I wanted to share with you guys so that you're aware of what's happening because um,
Yeah.
it's
Can I
interesting.
just add
It's really
something?
interesting. Yeah, sure. Sure,
Mm.
Suzanne.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the children's the UN document on children's rights, the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, and the regional documents on the rights of the child, all of them put the age. A child is anybody below the age of 18. And so even in this country, what happened is there were some laws which were putting it at 16 and all that. But when you read it against that, and also our constitution, it puts the age of majority, let's put it that way, to 18. So even as a child below the age of 18 cannot consent. Uh, and what is so interesting about that document, the UNCRC, the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, it is one of the most ratified conventions in the world. In fact, I think the only two countries who had not ratified it was the US, who said they had their own laws, which were sufficient, and Somalia, because Somalia was, at war. So it's interesting that we should still be having those ages, in the domestic laws, because all these countries are signatories to the rights of the child, to the UNCRC, and so unless they've made reservations on the age, um, everybody in all countries is supposed to be. They're supposed to have passed laws which will put the age of consent to 18 and above, to marriage, to anything like that, to 18 and above. So um, yeah, the way those suppose, I'm sure there's another document which will show they have adopted the rules in the UNCRC. So we need to that needs to be that is actually how it's supposed to apply. So when you sign an international convention, it means that you're supposed to now go back and domesticate your laws so they're aligned with that.
Okay,
So
Susan.
like,
So,
for instance,
absolutely. But are those laws binding? Are those
which
agreements,
one?
those ratifications, are they binding? The ones with the
They're
UNCRC?
yes, they're supposed to be. That's why you ratify. It's out of choice. You ratified it, so you've agreed to be bound by it. So it's supposed
Okay.
to have implications on your domestic laws. So
Mm-hmm.
so for instance, the Kenyan Constitution, there has a clause which says that international conventions also are part of our law. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that's why they're part of our law. But once you ratify, like those convention, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, once it was ratified, the state countries who have signed it supposed to go back to their home countries and domesticate it, the
Mm-hmm.
law. Supposed to
Mm-hmm.
make the changes in their domestic laws to align with their international obligations, because they
Mm-hmm.
report. They report. There's treaty body reporting that you're supposed to do every so often. So they're supposed to
Mm-hmm.
report on some of these things and say, this is the status, this is the status, this is the status. Yeah. And you know what's so
It's
interesting is
interesting.
that,
Yeah.
mhm,
I was going to say it's
yeah,
interesting that the US is not a signatory to this UN. They like they're not a signatory to this law. that they have their own laws. The same thing with the UK. I know definitely the age of consent in the UK is below 18. Yeah.
Yeah. The US are very, they say they have their own regime. They don't really sign a lot of the UN conventions. They have their own rules. I know in
Hmm.
particular about the rights, the UNCRC, they did not sign it.
Hmm.
Somalia and the US didn't sign. Yeah, but for different
Yeah.
reasons. Yeah.
Hmm.
You were talking about the uh, economic impact, the impact of, and whether it
Hmm.
has any, the way an economy is, whether it has any relation to violence
Hmm.
happening. So on family side, one of the things that I came across was that one of the motives,
Hmm.
and it's called immortality, and that immortality is where the person feels that the person unaliving his family feels that he has failed in some respect,
Hmm.
and that the family cannot continue without him, and so he has failed, and so he wants to immortalize the family, so the literally annihilates the entire family, those present in the home. So that is one of the triggers and one of the motives as to why uh, familicide is committed. That's just one category of the people who do it. So
Yeah.
um,
And
it
you'll
is
explain
a stressor.
familicide. Hmm.
Yeah. So familicide is you're going to show the
Familicide is basically murder of or unalivement of the family members, of all family
it's actually
members.
what it is that it's a type of murder suicide in which an individual unalives close family members in quick succession, mostly spouses, children, siblings, parents, grandparents, and actually anybody who's in that household at the time when that is being carried out, they'll be unalived.
Hmm.
Um, so that's what happens. So one of the triggers is actually the stressor. It's called immortality, it's financial, lifestyle stresses. It's depression. So the person is suffering from some form of depression, and it's related to failure to provide for his family. So the unaliving is to immortalize the family. Um,
What do you mean by
there are
immortalize? Immortalize, but they've mortalized them. How do you
yeah,
immortalize by mortalizing?
in their thinking, that's how they're seeing. That's how they're thinking, that they're
To keep them
immortalizing
alive
the
by
family.
unaliving them. You
Yeah,
keep them alive
some
by unaliving them. How? I don't
yeah,
understand. By the way, did you see that story of a lady who died in the? I think she was in Canada.
uh-huh.
I don't know, Lynn. Did you hear about that? I'm going to ask Lynn, who's in there, if she's still there. There's a lady, I think, in the States or in Canada, who jumped into what did she jump into? She jumped into a very big river,
Oh,
and
with her
together with her
children.
two children.
Yes,
Do you remember
that
that? Just
yes.
recently. Let me
Ni-
look it up.
Niagara Falls. Niagara
Niagara
Falls. She jumped
Falls.
in. Yes,
Yes.
yes, yeah. That is that. Those are those stressors. Um, you know,
Yeah.
probably
Such
they're
a
the
beautiful
stressors.
family. Mm.
Yeah, it's really sad. I think I sent you the PowerPoint if you want to look at some of those. It's not.
Yes, 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 yes.
Let me,
I really haven't had the chance to actually upload it here. Did you want us to upload it? Do you want to see it now? A PowerPoint.
I just wanted to show some of the things that
All
I
right.
wanted
All right.
people
Let me see if I can.
to have
Let
a
me
look
see if I can. Ah, okay. Just a sec. Let's
as
see if I can
we're
find it.
talking.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, familicide is is when there's an aliving or an aliving suicide. And it happens within the context of the family, and there are a number of motives. One is immortality, the other one is the need for control,
Mm-hmm.
um, where they feel there's a threat of separation, So the unaliving is seen as the final act of control. They have
Mhm.
fear of abandonment, and they also believe, this is now the thinking of somebody, a family annihilator, is that
Mhm.
the children are in it too. They're also
Mhm.
part of the abandoning, they're part of the you know the the they're escaping from that person, they are part of the separation. So they, like, the children have also made that choice, which is not is not the correct view, but this is the way family annihilator, we can call them that,
Mhm.
views things. And so
Mhm.
the other one is suicide, and the belief that the family cannot do without them. So they want to unalive
Mhm.
themselves, but they
Mhm.
unalive the whole family because they feel the family cannot do without them. And the last one is revenge. And this is related to sexual jealousy. And
Mhm.
what happens in this particular one, the person may unalive the children and leave the mother to suffer,
Mhm.
because the intention is to make the mother suffer. So they will do
Mhm.
something like that. So the perpetrator type is mostly males who do it, but like you said, it can be done by women too. We've actually had some cases in Kenya where that has happened, but I just couldn't find them. But we'll talk about a few cases that I came across, at
Mhm.
least three of them. Uh,
Mhm.
and most likely they don't have a criminal history. There is not the same sort of profile as an intimate partner or a spousal person who, in a case of femicide,
Mhm.
it's not the same sort of profile, but they're unlikely to have the
Mhm.
criminal history. Less likely, not unlikely, less likely, on a spectrum. And then they are likely to have a personality disorder, like the narcissistic, antisocial, borderline personality disorder, or histrionic. They're also domineering. They dominate the family relationship. They also have the patriarchal perspective of the family unit. They have
Mhm.
low coping skills. So they're not able to manage anger. They're not able to cope with stress. And and then the other one is also substance abuse, whether it's alcohol or drugs or whatever. And then the other one is because of their behavior, their character, they have a poor employment record. That is, they don't stay in places of work for a long period of time. And
Mhm.
then we have
Mhm.
the victims, like you were mentioning earlier, the victims in family side are usually the women are aged between 25 and 44, and the children are young.
Mhm.
And so what happens is that there's a history of domestic violence in the home, and toward the end of it, toward the actual act, the actual event, it escalates and it also includes
Mhm.
choking and strangulation. Actually, ladies and gentlemen, strangulation, choking, that is not a good sign. So, for instance, the case of Gabby Petito, when she said that the what's his name? I've forgotten his name. Laundry
Mhm.
had
Mhm.
Brian Laundry had put his hand around her neck. That, to anybody who's been trained in picking up on domestic violence, that was a red flag immediately, because they
Mhm.
say if somebody has the habit of putting their hand around your neck, eventually they will strangle you. Eventually
Mhm. Mhm.
it's like they're testing. So that is a very, very, very bad sign,
Right.
that putting their hand around your neck.
Mhm.
And for people watching it, those, because I was watching now videos and all that,
Your
and
internet.
they said that was a red
Yeah.
flag.
Susan, check your internet connection. Yeah, check your
Yeah.
internet connection, Kidogo. It's a bit
It's
bad.
not clear. Can you hear me now? Is you're muted.
Sorry, I'm saying there was a
You're
little bit of
muted.
delay. There was a bit of a
Yeah.
delay, so the
Okay.
picture. So you just have to check. I don't know whether it's where you're
Yeah.
seated or yeah, but also it's because of the rain. We know that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's raining quite heavily here. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So Brian's case, that
Alternative. Yeah. Okay. Go
Gabby
ahead. Go
said
ahead.
he held her neck. And yeah, so, the choking, the strangulation, usually sexual assaults. And we're talking about familicide. We're talking about an individual who uh, uh, will eventually unalive his entire family. And by the way, it can even go to grandparents. Whoever's in that home at the time when this event takes place, uh, and it's thing. Yeah. So, those are some of the points. And then I don't know whether you can show the videos. Is there a video on this? No, I want to talk about the cases because I didn't. Yes, there's
Yes, I
one
can show
video,
the video.
the
I can
one
show the
of
videos,
the
but unfortunately, the
Kiombua.
PowerPoint. Yeah, the PowerPoint I can't, but I can show you the videos. Yes. Which one do you want, Susan?
Siombua.
Ah, Siambo. Okay, so wacha nimtafute.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we're looking for Susan's videos, how are you guys all doing? I mean, I know this is sad stories here, but we need to discuss these issues. And yeah, there's somebody there who said there's a new person on board, and I want to welcome them. Alternative affordable cures. I wonder what you are promoting there. Yeah, what are these alternative affordable cures? But yeah, you say that the discussion is enlightening, and we are happy that you're finding it enlightening. Yeah, and yeah, we welcome you. We welcome you. So, Susan Siombua, what does it say? Probe continues in the killing of a woman and two children. Probe continues in the killing of a woman and two children. Is that it? I think that's the one. That could be the one. Yeah. Let me play it and then you'll tell me whether that's correct.
It began as a case
Yeah.
of a missing family. It's turning into one of the most complex murder cases experienced in Kenya in recent times.
Well, the plot is thick, complete with twists and turns, deceit and intrigue. Citizen TV has followed the investigations on the cruel murder of 31-year-old Joyce Siombua and her two children.
The story hit the newsrooms as yet another of those unfortunate yet not unusual cases of a missing person or persons. On Saturday, the 8th of October 2019, Elizabeth Maua Malombe asked reporters to help trace her daughter, 31-year-old Joyce Siombua, and her two children, 10-year-old Shanice and 5-year-old Prince Michael. The three had been missing for 2 weeks. Elizabeth narrated how Siombua and the children had left Kayole on Friday 25th October to visit her estranged partner and father of her children, Major Peter Mugure, who worked at the Nanyuki Air Base.
Akamwambia nataka watoto wakifunga shule wanitembelee, sitaki nikuwe stranger kwao. Tuwe tunaonana nao.
Elizabeth was worried that something terrible had happened to her daughter and grandchildren after they failed to return home from Nanyuki that Sunday. News reporters hit the trail in search of clues, as did police in Nairobi and Nanyuki.
Investigations have been launched because the mother and the two kids have not yet been found.
In Nanyuki, Major Mugure had been called in for questioning. This is how he narrated the events in his first statement to the police. At 9 p.m. on Friday 25th October, Joyce and the two children arrived at the Nanyuki bus station. Major Mugure told police that he picked them up and drove them to Laikipia Air Base, where they spent the night at his singles quarters at the barracks. Unmarried military personnel like Major Mugure are provided a one-room and bathroom quarters. Mugure claims that the next morning, on Saturday 26th October, Joyce Siombua called her friend a certain lady from Timau, requesting that she picks up the children to allow her and Mugure some private time to themselves. The major told police that at around 9 a.m. on Saturday the 26th, he and Joyce left the airbase to drop the children with a lady from Timau. He claims that they were back at his quarters shortly after and stayed there until 3 p.m. when they left the airbase for Kirimara Springs Hotel in Nanyuki for some late lunch. Major Mugure said that he and Joyce were at Kirimara Springs until 6 p.m. that Saturday. He claimed that he had intended to book 2 rooms at the hotel for his family for the night, but that he changed his plans after receiving an emergency call at work. He instead opted to have them leave for Nairobi. The major said that he took Joyce back to the barracks to pick her belongings. He said that they met the lady from Timau and the children. He said he dropped the 4 at the bus station at 7 p.m. on that Saturday evening and left them waiting to board a vehicle. Even though Major Mugure was a person of interest to the police, he had not been identified as a suspect. Police investigators were still treating this as a missing persons case. The first and perhaps most important clue in this case had already emerged at 3 a.m. on Monday, 28 October. A matatu driver at 4 NTE Sacco in Nanyuki had discovered a phone in his vehicle and handed it to his supervisor. The phone belonged to Joyce Siombua. Police began by quizzing the matatu driver. The movements of the matatu where Siombua's phone was found sparked questions over Major Mugure's first statement on the events of that weekend. On that Saturday, 26th October, the vehicle had left Nanyuki at 3 a.m. for Bomet, where the driver was attending a private function. He stayed in Bomet until 5:30 p.m. on that Saturday. At the time Major Mugure claims he dropped his family off at the bus terminus, the vehicle in question was not in the terminus. The vehicle only arrived in Nanyuki at 11 p.m. that Saturday night. The driver says he was the last person in the vehicle when he left the SACCO headquarters and that he was the first person in the vehicle the next day. This was Sunday morning, 27th October at 4 a.m. He drove the vehicle to Nakuru and was not back in Nanyuki until 3 p.m. on Sunday afternoon, which is when he spotted the phone on the passenger's seat.
Tulipofika polisi, tuliambiwa mwenye kusafiri alikuwa nasafiri hiyo Saturday saa 1. Na driver wetu alikuwa Kerisho saa 1 akija Nanyuki.
A closer look at Siombua's phone communication that weekend revealed more to investigators. Siombua had been texting her best friend, Farizana Kateu, updating her on the trip. On the Friday night they arrived in Nanyuki, Siombua checked in with her friend via text at about 10:22 p.m. Once she and the children had arrived at the barracks, Joyce said she felt safe.
We are safe. We're spending the night at his workplace. The security is very good.
Okay, happy to hear that, dear. Do you think you'll be intimate?
We can't. We're sharing a bed with the kids. There is only one bed.
The two friends continued chatting late into the night via WhatsApp. Their chat revealing deeper the state of Siombua and Major Mugure's relationship on that Friday night.
Hello, are you not asleep?
I can't sleep until you assure me you're okay.
We're okay. The kids are asleep. Peter and I are here, but we're not talking. He's upset because I refused to shower with him.
My God.
The place is the safest. Calm down.
Okay, but please talk and sort things out.
He's not talking. He says we still have time with him.
Just talk to him.
Sleep well. Let me fall asleep with the children.
Good night. Tomorrow, sleep with one eye open, dear.
Of course.
The next morning, Farizana checked up on her at 9:14 a.m.
Morning.
Morning, dear. How is your morning?
I wanted to check if you're up already.
We're okay. Having our breakfast now. The chair was comfortable. We slept facing each other. But like brother and sister, that's the best way to move forward.
Everything appeared to be going okay that morning until 11 a.m. when Joyce texted Farizana again.
I went to shower and when I got out, Peter had left with the children. He says he took them on a tour of the barracks. It's been over 1 hour now. I hope he won't tell them anything foolish.
Have you tried calling them?
He says he's showing them around. The barracks is huge. There's an airport in here. He just walked in.
Okay, good. But as long as they're safe, it's not a problem.
We're about to leave for Chaka. I'll update you.
All right.
From 11:25 Saturday morning, Joyce went quiet.
Around 6:20 something, almost 6:30, akanipigia reverse call. Ati sasa poa, akaniambia niko na wasiwasi, nikamuuliza ni nini tena. Ati niliogopa asubuhi kukuambia sababu nilijua utanipigia kelele. Venye Peter alitoka na watoi asubuhi, hakurudi na wao. Nikamuuliza, ukimuuliza watoto wako wapi, alikuambia aje? Aliniambia alipeleka watoto wako tu sawa. Hakumwambia mahali alipeleka watoto wako tu sawa. Amewapeleka mahali wa spend huko, na sisi tukae pamoja, at least tuone kama tunaweza sort out issues zetu, tuache kukaa na hii mfurugano mingi. Simu yangu ikaisha credit, nikamwambia simu yangu imeisha credit. Nikamtext, kukaa nikamtext wameletwa, text ikaingia. Haikujibiwa.
At around 6:35 p.m. on Saturday 26th October, Joyce Yombua's phone went off. At 8 p.m., Farizana decided to reach out to Major Mugure.
Akaniambia Mama Shanice wametoka. Nikamuuliza wametoka wameenda wapi? Wamerudi Nairobi. Hiyo ni around 8. Wamerudi Nairobi. Nikamuuliza sasa usiku mpango imefika wapi ya kuwa wanarudi sasa usiku kukuja Nairobi? Na hiyo haikuwa kulingana na vile nilikuwa nimeongea na Mama Shanice. Akaniambia kuna vitu zimetokea kwa kambi, hawangeweza kuspend night hapa.
As the story developed, a taxi driver watching from Nanyuki remembered a strange phone call he had allegedly received from Major Mugure. The driver went to police alleging that the Major had called him that weekend asking for 3 gunny bags to dispose of some luggage. The taxi driver claims he wanted to know what kind of luggage he would be handling, but that Major Mugure would not disclose any more information. He declined. On Friday, 15th November 2019, Major Mugure had now become a prime suspect in the disappearance of Joyce Yombua, Shanice Maua, and Prince Michael. The 3 had now been missing for 20 days. Mugure was arrested in Nanyuki and taken in for further questioning. Another suspect who worked at the airbase as a casual laborer was also apprehended. When questioned, the man told police that he had helped Major Mugure to bury the bodies of Siombua, Shanice, and Prince. On Saturday, 16th November, the witness led police to a shallow grave at Kilimo Thingithu Estate in Nanyuki. The bodies, believed to be of Joyce Yombua, Shanice Maua, and Prince Michael, were dug out from the shallow grave. A post-mortem conducted on the bodies revealed that Siombua was hit on the head with a blunt object, causing bleeding in the brain. The 2 children were strangled with a rope. Major Peter Mugure remains in police custody as investigations continue. His family has since spoken out.
Nafinyika sana sana nikisikia ati kuna watoto siwajui, sijawaona, hakuna mtu alikuja hapa kunielezea.
No, my brother is an honest man. Venye namjua, he can't even kill a fly.
Investigators are now tracking Mugure's movements on Saturday 26th October and Sunday 27th October. Was the Major in charge of security at the barracks that weekend? They will probe whether Joyce and the children ever left the barracks after their arrival that Friday night. Where had Peter taken the children on Saturday morning when he told Siombua that they were on a tour of the barracks? Were the children alert at the time of the murder? Did the killings happen inside the barracks? And if so, how many people were involved in the gruesome murder and cover-up of the young family? Asha Mwilu, Citizen TV.
Yeah, so in this particular case, they were estranged. There was a case for maintenance of the children that between Joyce and Peter, and the court had ordered that they had to do some DNA testing, and it was ascertained that the 2 children were Peter's children, and she was told that she has to grant him access because he's the biological father of the children. So when he told them to go to Nanyuki, it was sort of in obedience to a court order although Joyce's mother had a lot of misgivings because there had been a previous incident where there was like an attempt to poison the children through some drink, and she didn't trust Peter. There were some previous incidences of that made her not trust him at all with the children or even with her daughter. So she was lured to Nyanyuki, and in another video which we can't show here because it's from somebody else, they said that in the morning he woke up and he went with the children and he unalived them in a nearby empty house, and that's where he unalived them. And when he came back to the house without them, they were already unalived. And he comes back to the house where Siombua is waiting for him, and he also unalives Siombua. So some things that are important for us to pick up from there is the planning. The planning. They were told to go and was planning for he had planned to unalive them. So when he unalived them, he went and buried them somewhere. And he had to get the help from somebody else, and actually this is how the information came out. The other thing is that Siombua did the right thing. She had a friend who was keeping track of what was going on. But you notice the program slipped when she realized that she could have made a mistake, because when he came back and he didn't have the children, she got nervous and she didn't tell her friend that there was a problem. She was still alive at that time, so she didn't tell her friend. But later on, she told her friend, "I'm a bit worried. I've not seen these children." And I think, even for a mother, it's not easy for you to think that the father would do something like that to the children. So it's important when we're talking about prevention is really to understand, when you're in danger, so you avoid that. Because Joyce's mom didn't want her to go at all. For her, she had seen some red flags. But sometimes she was obeying a court order. And the thing is, when you ask yourself, is it the court didn't have enough information to realize that the father of these children was actually a danger to them? Because he ended up unaliving them. And not just them, their mother too. And he survived. The other thing is that he had another family. And these are sort of things to notice. He had another family before Joyce. And he met Joyce when she was in secondary school. So she was young when he met her. Maureen, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that just continue. I think I'll say at the end. I'm just in shock.
So he buried his children and the mother. He got some gunny bags and he buried them in this place. Now, Siombua is 31 years. Joyce is 31 years old. The children were 10 years and 5 years old. Apparently, with family side, they don't usually, when the older children are not usually part of this, maybe because they can fight back or argue or something like that. But the girl was 10 and the boy was 5 years old. And so there were red flags in this. The mother knew there was something wrong. She didn't want this guy anywhere near the daughter. But the court ordered that because he's the father, there should be access. So the question again is, how much due diligence should the court have done to be able to, because the children were being released to the father in the best interest of the child. But you see, the best interest of the child ended up in another result altogether. And then the steps she took them until shame came into the way. So these are some of the dynamics that people in an abusive relationship, in a domestically abusive relationship, undergo. So their emotions are and their decisions are not always the right decisions. And this is something now we have to really look at. Of course, hindsight is 2020, but when we look at this story, we can see that there were ways of having prevented this. Maybe the mother listened to the mother not to go, been in touch with her friend when she was, and told her immediately, and maybe the friend would have told her as a sober person who's not right there, get out of there now, get out, call the police or something like that. Or the friend would have called the police herself, because she knew where her friend was. There could have been some action taken. And the instincts of the mother were very, very good. So the way he even did away with, he unalived them, was completely brutal. Strangulation, deep cuts, and then putting them in gunny bags and just burying them in a shallow grave. So that's the case of Mogore, of the Siombua family, and it's really sad. I know some of the questions, in fact, with family side, is the family asks after, it's very, very puzzling for them, how to deal with it. Her mother is asking questions, everybody's asking questions. You saw Peter's family there saying that he can't hurt a fly, that obviously he has hurt his own children. He has, he has done, he has, he has, unallowed them.
Yeah.
Uh,
Susan, this have just been, for me, I have no words to say, because actually I have a lot of words to say, but I'm so angry. This just, talking about being angry, this makes me really angry, because I heard the story, but I never followed up to see what happened. So I'm so happy that you brought it to light. It was a very sad story about this lady who was called by the father of the children to a military barrack. That's another thing. A military barrack. Don't they have CCTV cameras? Don't they know the nature? Was she not seen by the other military officials around? Was she not and the children seen? Was he not seen taking the children into the house? How many other people were involved in this? Because again, for him to actually do it alone, I doubt it. Because also there was somebody who said that he helped to build, to bury them, to bury the victims. Yeah. So there was another person apart from the husband. There was his friend. So they had colluded to get rid of the woman and her children, so that he no longer has to pay child support, because he already has another family. So this is another level. It's another level where you have the collaboration of friends to unalive a family member, to alive family members. And that makes it extremely dangerous. Extremely dangerous. Because you see, the person who went to the police is the taxi driver, right? Who said that there was an army person who asked for 3 gunny bags for some work. So this man did not do this work quietly. It's like he was asking for help, like he wanted people to know. So he involved a group of men to help him to exterminate his own family. Today I was listening to a TikTok video where this man was advising men and also women about the kinds of friends not to make, the kinds of people to be really watching out for, those who are jealous of you and those who are envious of you, especially those who are envious. He said, especially those who are envious. They could be that his friend was envious. Look at this woman, she was gorgeous. Look at the children, really beautiful. Some of those friends are actually people who are lazy and they're unaccomplished, and they could actually be envious of him and his family and would do anything to exterminate or to stop him from enjoying his family. Look at that little boy. He looks so much like his dad. Look at that little boy. He looks exactly like his dad, except he has his Prince. He had his mother's complexion, but his face was completely his dad. Yeah, the features, you could see the dad completely. And it was so sad because how trusting those little children were. They were so excited to be with their daddy. To imagine that their daddy would actually take their life. having planned it, and he wouldn't actually stop at some point. Do you know, and I'm very, very sure that if you go to that video, you're going to see comments in there, because Kenyans have earned the reputation of being bullies online. You're going to probably find comments saying, what did she do to him? What did she do to deserve this? So the question you ask is, what did the children do to deserve it also then? What did she do to deserve this? She must have kulad fair. She must have taken advantage of him. She must have done something to him for her to deserve to be unalived in this manner. And what I want to tell those people is this: when you can say that as long as it doesn't touch on one of your family members, but the day that it comes home to roost in your own family, you will not be talking like that. It might actually be you who is unalived by a woman, or your brother or your sister, somebody you love dearly, who is unalived by a member of the opposite sex. And at that point, you won't be saying those things. And I think, what I would say is that anybody who comes out with those kinds of comments on social media should be tracked by the government as potential. Yeah, because these are the kinds of people who can actually be brought in as corroborators to that kind of an event. You can easily be sucked into and become one of the accomplices who actually goes and unalives another person. So you should be actually on a watch list if you kind of come up with those kinds of comments. Another thing is that who takes responsibility for this, Susan? Who takes responsibility? What about the courts? That judge who did that, who ordered, who came up with this order, who said that the woman has to take those underage children to their father, that their father has a right. But what about in a public space? Well, it is a public space. It's a military barrack. It is a public space. I think, the woman really did due diligence as far as possible. She got a friend, like you said. She got her friend to track her. She got a friend to call her all the time. And I'm sure I can imagine the discussion she had with a friend. You know what? I don't trust this guy. He's a military guy. These jeshis. They have guns. They have. Oh, I shouldn't say that. That they have ammunition. That they have. So, I don't really feel that safe with him. So
and
this
her
girl was
past experience with him.
calling. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she doesn't
She
want to
couldn't
worry
even
her
sleep.
mom. She couldn't
Yeah.
even
She
sleep.
couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Her friend couldn't sleep until she knew
Her friend
they
could
were
not sleep.
they were
Yeah.
in touch until the shame set in, because Joyce probably
Yeah.
regretted.
Yeah.
What now? Why did I come here? I brought my
Yeah.
family to danger. Because let me tell you, Joyce for sure knew what type of man Peter was.
She was
And
dealing
that's
with.
why she separated herself from him and wanted the maintenance. And, he, of course, demanded access. She wanted custody of the children. He wanted access. You see, the interesting thing about the law is that the biological parent is entitled to it. And it's a very, tough to explain to the court. It's a very high burden on you to explain to the court why the father should not see the child, the children. So the presumption is that it's in the best interest of the children for them to see both parents. And so this is where it went wrong, because there should have been some sort of more restrictive orders. For instance, an order that says you can only see the children in this environment. Only see the children in this. And orders like that have been made, that you hand over the
Exactly.
child here
With a
and
qualified counsel, a qualified person. Yeah.
You be here and you cannot move from there. There must be always somebody, not the mother, because obviously the mother is, not the best person to, but that, and I think it's not easy for people who've never been subjected to abusive relationships to understand that dynamic that is there, and even the control, the control in the mind that is there. If you're talking
Let me
about
play this
somebody who
video,
has,
Susan. Let me play this video of President Ramaphosa of South Africa. What are his views about this? Let me just play this. I hope I'm not going to get copyright strike, but
must ever believe that they own a woman in South Africa. Effective from this month, we now want to move to a stage where when you touch a woman and you are arrested, no bail for you. And when you kill a woman, life sentence for you. Because there is no justifiable reason for us as men to believe that we own women. As you said, Minister Dlamini Zuma, yes, there was a period where men believed that they owned women. And we must relegate that to the past. It could have belonged to the slavery days, but today, no man must ever believe that they own a woman in South Africa. Effective from this month, no police bail may be granted to persons charged with rape or if the victim was in a domestic relationship with the perpetrator, even if it was in a domestic relationship. Such bail applications must be formally applied for in court. If the accused was in a domestic relationship with the alleged victim, the court has to issue a protection order against them before releasing them on bail. But in my book, they should not even be released on bail.
This is Legrand from Simple Generation.
I love that video because it shows the top-down approach, the very forthright, attitude of the president of South Africa towards this menace, because it is a menace. It's a societal menace and a risk to the whole society. South Africa also suffers from this same thing of a lot of femicides, a lot of rapes, and it came from, their very brutal past. I believe, and he said it himself. He thinks there's, no man owns. It's an issue of ownership. Ownership, no man should think that they own a woman. Like this woman who was unalived here in Kenya, is because this man believed he could do whatever he wants to do with her because he owns her and he owns those children. They're his property. So he can do with them what he wants. So I really love what Cyril Ramaphosa said there. And we want more and more presidents and leaders of African countries and other countries to stand up against this really horrible thing. And Fia is saying it's a pity that she did not travel with someone. What a tragedy. I agree, Fia. Really, what a huge tragedy. A very sad tragedy, actually. I wish she probably could not have traveled because, you see, they wouldn't have been granted access into the military barracks. It's the choice of venue also. But even if she had traveled with them, I don't think, they would have been able to share a room. Of course not, or even share an accommodation. I think that poor lady, she just shouldn't have gone and spent the night with that guy. You should have gone somewhere in the daytime and been like, there should have been another official there. Some sort of protective orders should have also been granted together with the rights of the father to see the children. And that wasn't done. Now,
Yeah,
that's a failing of the court, Susan, isn't it? You're the lawyer.
Yeah, I've done some cases where we've insisted on certain rules and the court has granted them. So for some reason, maybe he was able to convince the court that he was, is going to just do the right thing, and he did that. So it's really, this is where the tensions are, because that's what the law provides, that the father should have access to the children in the best interest of the child. So there's that tension there about, is there another level where there should have been further investigation, more supervision, before you really understand how the dynamics in the family are. So when you're talking about motive, what was Peter's motive? I think it was revenge. And that's why he lured them there. And he had to strike at that point, and he planned it very well. He wanted them to come to his space, not another space, but his space, where he could control the environment. Where he took the children and unalived them, he had already, identified the place he was going to take them. Where he did this, he had already identified that. And you can see even he got angry with the court with her. She refused to with Joyce because she refused to shower with him. So obviously he was trying to be intimate with her. I mean, you know, and she refused to shower, and he got that really upset him even further. So it is
Susan, think
revenge that
about
he
it
was.
this way. Think about it this way. What if he wanted to
Mhm,
shower with her, be intimate with her, and then unalive her?
mhm. Yeah, they do. It happens. It happens that way.
Mhm,
So I think
mhm.
his motive was revenge. And also there's another case, if I can just share another case with you, that this
The one
one.
of Babam
So the
Zazi.
case of Joyce, yeah,
Hmm.
the
There's
one
one that
of
you told me.
is called Mukundi. It's called Jonathan Mukundi Gashunga.
Hmm. You talk about the one who hurt
This
his
one I
child.
didn't send you the video.
Okay.
No, not that one yet. Yeah.
Okay.
Jonathan Mukundi Gashunga, he was a multimillionaire, and in this case, it was unaliving his spouse and himself. So it was a murder-suicide. And he had an ex-wife and 3 children in the US, but he met Philomena, Jerry, in Kenya, and there was a 14-year age gap between them. So they liked the good times. I mean, they used to go out partying and all that and all that. And apparently he was well known in this area where they lived for having a very hot temper. People knew him to have a hot temper. Apparently he would stand on the balcony of his beautiful house and yell at people from the balcony and ask them, what are you doing there? If he saw a stranger, he'd be very sort of abrasive toward them. So they had been married for 6 years, and that's when things started to spiral out of hand. They had lots of fights and breakups, making up, fighting, making up, and all, uh, violent related. Reasons were partying. I told you that the age difference between the two was 14 years. So apparently Philomena used to like partying. The other reason was money and no children. And they had been separated for a period of time. And the reason why I'm giving you this is the significance of all these things. They were separated for a period of time, for about 5 months before he unalived her. And what he did, he lured her to their house, and said he had been involved in an accident. She should come and get him and take him to the hospital. So she went there, and that was it. She went to the house, and that was it. They were found in the master room. It was locked from the inside. The weapon of choice was a gun. So he unalived Jerry first, and then he self-unalived. So the family, of course, were left with so many questions. Why, how, what, so many questions about, exactly what happened. Because what happened is the workers came, they tried to get into the house, they couldn't get into the house. Eventually they broke in, and then that's when they found things what had happened in the house. So this is a married couple with this age gap, and it's a murder-suicide. So things to pick up from here is the build up to the event. Remember, I said it escalates. Toward the end, it escalates. So the build up. So they went along nicely for 6 years. And the trouble started when she wanted to go her own way. So when she wanted to go her own way, that is now when the danger set in for Jerry. That's actually where the danger set in. Because she moved out and she was separated from him for 5 months. But he found a way of getting her back into the house. And this is when that happened. And this is something that they do. So it escalates. So he planned that. When he called her back to the house, he actually planned to do something that wasn't right. It wasn't right. And don't forget,
Something
I
to do
told you
with
he was.
ownership. He believed he owned her, and nobody else should have
So
her.
no,
Obviously.
so the motive here was control. He wanted to control her. That was one of the motives. And again, also revenge, because she was going out partying. She was 14 years younger than he was. And she was the second wife. They had no children and all that. So, but that was an issue for him, that she didn't have children. And she was talking about money again.
Yeah.
Maybe there were
Alikula
some
fair.
money issues.
So because he spent money on her, He should unalive her. I mean, where does that mentality come from? I don't get it. I don't.
They were
Yeah.
married though. I mean, this is a married couple. This is a married
Yeah.
couple.
Yeah.
So he was known to have a hot temper also.
Mhm.
So in the honeymoon stage, which was before the 6 years, I mean, they were getting on famously. There were some really nice pictures of them, doing, enjoying each other's company and stuff like that. But it's always telling when you have that sort of arrangement, and you're able to tell, okay, at this point, this is where things went bad. And it's at this point also that she decided to separate herself from him. So these are things that we should be analyzing some of these cases in order to keep women safe. The last case that I want to share with you, which is also a Kenyan case, but it happened in Minnesota in the US. And this is the case of Kebabe. They're from Nyaribari Chache, from Nyaribari Chache. And Kebabe, they moved to the States. They were both health workers. The wife was studying actually to be a health worker. She was just about to graduate, actually, maybe 2 months from graduating. But he was a nurse, and they had 3 children. One was 9, one was 12, and then there was a small baby, like 3 months old. So there was a history of domestic violence even before they went to the US. Apparently, even here in Kenya, there was domestic violence before they moved to the US. So there was a history of that. So his wife was called, what was her name again? Anyway, his wife had reported several times to the, she had made reports to the police that he was threatening he had threats to kill, threats to unalive, severe beating, a number of, bad experiences she had gone through at his hand of violence. So he was charged with domestic violence, but for some reason it was pled down to disorderly conduct. So again, here, this is a mistake that you can see. They didn't sort of analyze the case well enough. And this was potentially a dangerous person. So on the fateful day, he hit his wife with a golf club and strangled. And then he put her in the bathroom and locked the door, shut the door. When this happened, the children were not home. Oh, by the way, he had been out of work for some time, like a year or so. So he hit his wife and locked her in the bathroom. When the 2 children came home, he gave them something to drink. He put Tylenol in cranberry juice. So he gave them the Tylenol. So he took the son and he drowned him. Then he took the son, put him back in his room, in his bed, and covered him in the son's bed and covered him. The daughter, who was younger, what did he do? He smothered her. She was already drowsy because of the Tylenol. So he smothered her. He covered her head, covered her nicely, and also locked her. So you can see there are 3 locked doors in the room. There's a small baby who's 3 months old. So he takes off with the small baby. Oh, he wanted to unalive himself. He tried to block his airway. But then he realized that he had a small child, and what is he going to do about this child? So he wanted to sort of write something or something like that. So eventually he was caught. He was convicted for 25.5 years for each count. So that's a total of 76.5 years of each count. So the judge also compared, if he had been charged in Kenya and found guilty, here he would have been sentenced to death, although we don't do it anymore, but he would have been sentenced to death if convicted. Do not have been a life sentence, would not have been something like that. So the other tragedy is the devastation of the family. They were all planning to go for their sister or daughter's graduation. And what made them come to the US was to bury the sister and the 2 children. And then there was a small child. So there was also a battle about the custody now between his family and her family about the custody of the small child. So again, we can see what was happening in this, when we look at this particular case, what was happening in this case. This fellow decided he's just going to. So it could be immortality because he was not able to take care of his family. He wanted to immortalize his family. It could also be revenge because his wife was getting on. She was going to get her own qualifications and she was going to be, a nurse practitioner. It could be need to control the family. He felt he was losing control of his family now that his wife was heading towards her independence in terms of earning an income and stuff like that. So these are the red flags you need to look out for. He dragged his children. So the boy was 12 years old. Obviously, a 12-year-old might have tried to fight with his father or try to run away. Apparently, he did. Oh yeah, I remember that. He did. And the guy, when he was telling the accused person, the father was telling the police what happened. He said his son talked to him, asked him, "Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this?" So his son confronted him, but obviously he was already drugged. They did not. The dad mixed Tylenol in the cranberry juice which he gave his children. So they were, in a weakened state, so he couldn't really fight back. So that's the tragedy of it all. That's the real tragedy of it all. Also don't forget the mental health issues. This is somebody who had been, beating his wife. There was a history of extreme violence against his wife, both in Kenya and in the US. And even the way he did it, apparently the bathroom was full of blood spatter when the police eventually got in. And, so he's serving his sentence in the US. The justice was much, much quicker there than it is here. He pled guilty to second degree intentional murder in 2011. So he'll be over 90 years old when he comes out. The tragedy was the family really trying to deal with it. They started arguing again about where the body should be buried. So this was, in 2 of these cases, we've talked about people who are married. And in the first case, it was an ex relationship. And this is familicide has occurred in these contexts. So some prevention tips. Prevention is always better than cure. And there's a lady called Dr. Jane Moulton Smith who has done a study. She's actually analyzed about 400 prisoners. This is in the UK, who are actually, they've been convicted. They've gone through the justice system and they've been convicted of homicide. And she came up and she noticed a pattern that made her come up with what she called 8 stages to domestic homicide. So there is a pathway that is followed. And I'd wanted us to see the slide, but it's okay. I'll just say them. So she'd interviewed, she had reviewed. Apparently in the UK, what they do, all these cases when they're when there's a conviction of murder, of unaliving, they have like reviews. A committee goes through and they review. So she had first-hand knowledge of these cases. She had interacted even with the convicted persons. And she said the first thing that she noticed, because try to get the history and understand how did you get to this place. In stage 1 is the offender's history. So it's important to know when you're getting into a relationship is a little bit more about this person than that they're handsome and all that and you just like them. It's important for us to know the history. And I'm talking about both male and female, but mostly it's males. But women can be like that. Remember, we looked at some cases on Wednesday where the women were the aggressors. So the offender's history And what you're looking out for is controlling, possessive, and jealous behaviors, a history of that. And you won't necessarily find that in the police station. We're not there yet as a nation. But it could come out from stories that you hear him telling, which will sort of suggest that you need to watch out. They talk about terminologies like, blacklisting or a smear campaign against a former somebody they had a relationship with before you. Then stage 2 is when the new relationship starts. What happens is this relationship progresses very quickly and they try to get a commitment from you. Things like early pregnancy, moving in, some sort of commitment, so that you are bound to them one way or the other. Even be joint bank accounts or putting your money in the same place. So it's not easy for you to extricate yourself from that situation. Because for such individuals, once consent is given, it cannot be withdrawn unless they withdraw it. And I've said this, I think, in previous discussions. The third step is the relationship is now formed. And it is dominated by controlling patterns. Control, possessiveness, and jealousy, accusing you. You come late, that you are dating the taxi driver, or you are having a relationship with your boss, or you're having, all type of accusations. Control, you cannot come home after 6. You have to be inside the house by 6 o'clock. Being, very possessive and stuff like that. Ladies and gentlemen, being possessive is not necessarily a healthy thing. It's quite something that you should be worried about. Then the fourth stage is the trigger stage. And this is where an event occurs that challenges that person's control. So for instance, we look at the case of Gashunga. If we look at the ones we just looked at today, the older man, he started losing control when, after 6 years, he noticed she wanted to move away from him. She wanted to, so he was losing control. So that threat of separation that's the trigger stage. And actually that's one of the most dangerous stages. Then the fifth stage is the escalation stage. So they attempt now to regain control. So when they're attempting to regain control, what do? They love bomb, buy gifts, plead, cajole, stuff like that. They say, I can't live without you. Or they threaten to harm themselves, or say that you can never leave me, I'll do something bad to you. They can even threaten you. And if the relationship ends, that's when they start to stalk. Remember, we talked about the other Maureen's case. Remember the last time there was the case of Maureen. And this guy, this ex-husband would send her messages and say, I saw you somewhere. He was literally stalking her through the phone. I mean, she didn't see him, but he was doing, so she was terrified, So they start the stalking, either physical or through the internet or whatever it is. So, and they're doing this to punish. And then 3 things can happen at this stage, at stage 5. 1, they regain control and the lady goes back. So it's a cycle. So you go back to that cycle of abuse. The other one is that he accepts that you don't want anything to do them. So you move away from them. The last one is they decide you don't agree with them that you're going to go back, but it progresses to the next stage. And this is now when things become really dangerous. So when it progresses to the next stage, there's a change in thinking. So this is the mindset change from trying to get the relationship to work to punishing you. So they have made a decision and they become much calmer. The 7th stage is planning. That is when they plan what they're going to do, how they're going to punish you. And then the 8th stage is when they carry out what they have planned to do. And the result of those are either femicide, that is directed at the at the spouse or girlfriend or the female, or family side, where it's you and the children, and it can be you and the children and themselves. So they add suicide as well. And this is now where there's the nexus now between domestic homicide and familicide. When that decision is made at that point that they're going to harm everybody, they're going to do away with the entire family. In this case, the Kebabe case, he was intending to do away with the whole family, that he was stopped midway by circumstances. In Gashunga's case, he succeeded in the suicide. In the first case, there was no intention for the suicide because their motives were different. So those are the type of things. So if the personnel, people dealing with these type of cases, are able to identify these at any stage, they're able to stop this process before it gets to the point where we're dealing with loss of life, so that the case doesn't get to stage 8. But sadly, the training is lacking. Signs are misread, or they are not seen because you don't know how to look for them or how to identify them. Ladies can be very hysterical and all that, and then they're seen as the aggressors. Whereas in actual fact, this other fellow, the man is so manipulative. He has reduced this lady to that state of you can't really figure out what's going on with her. So these are the 8 stages, and I don't know whether we'll be able to put them down. So this is through some research that's been done, and from the research she was talking about, she said they have been successful in stopping cases before they get to that stage where we're dealing with loss of life. So those are the cases. The case of the baby is again prevention. I know time has gone,
Susan,
but
I think we're going to have to stop there because we don't really have much time left.
yeah.
Unfortunately, I'll have to stop the show, but I just wanted to maybe comment and also to take Fia's comment. Fia says, most men refuse mental health evaluations, yeah, until they snap, which is very true. Fia, that's really true. Yes, yes. A lot of men really do not like, especially African men. They don't believe in that, and we'll talk about that maybe in a follow-up show. But I don't know, Susan, maybe you want to respond to that
Yeah,
briefly?
that's very true. That's very true. That the way men approach their health and the way women do is very different. Mental health issues actually, I think it's very difficult for you to accept that you have a mental health problem. And like I said, the people who do commit familicide actually do have personality disorders. They actually have narcissistic tendencies, or what's the other? There's some personality disorder that makes them interpret and process information in completely the wrong way. But they will not go for treatment, and that is perhaps one of the issues that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Susan. I mean, today's topic has actually mainly focused on looking at cases and talking about familicide. Yeah, familicide and murder suicide. Is that correct, Susan? Yeah. And you see, because this issue of gender-based violence is really wide, it's almost impossible to cover everything in just one show. So I'll ask Susan if we can cover it over the weekend. And if we are going to cover it, I'll alert you guys so that maybe you can come on board maybe on Sunday night or something, and then cover the rest of it, because there's also what are the triggers, to GBV. It's unfortunate that we have to actually spend so much time talking about this, but it's necessary. It has to be done. Yeah, and the fact that we've been given the 16 days of activism against GBV means that as women, we should really dedicate time to it as much as possible. As much as possible. Because, by the way, we might save a life. It might help somebody. We don't know who's listening. Somebody, maybe one of you who is listening, on here. Maybe you're listening now, or maybe you listen after we're done with the live show. Maybe you're considering a relationship with somebody who's prone to a temper tantrum, somebody who has already sent threats to you, somebody who seems to be obsessed with you. Maybe maybe you're already in a relationship like that. You're in an abusive relationship. You're trying to figure out whether you should leave. Maybe your children are very young. You're worried about how you're going to provide for them in case you leave, in case you were to leave and go and be on your own. I hope that you'll consider these very big risks that you are taking with your life and the lives of your potential of your children, because in the best case scenario, nothing will happen, but there's a good chance something could happen. And it may not be as far as unaliving, but it could also be emotional trauma that lasts you and your children forever and never goes away, and that can impact on the quality of your life and even shorten it in future. So what we want to say is, we are not blaming men or women. As you know, we are balanced, but we have to be honest and also talk about the fact that, acknowledge the fact that women are and children are the biggest are the main victims in these kinds of GBV situations. And so women should be alert. And the fact that this information is not even taught in schools, I think it should even be introduced in the syllabus. How to treat each other, how to recognize dangers, how men and women, boys and girls, should be taught to recognize these dangers, these danger signs, in some sort of life skills education class. How to manage anger, how to identify when you might get to the point where, as a male, you might lose it, and as Fia puts it, snap, where you might snap, so that you avoid getting all to all those stages. So it's raining heavily here in Nairobi, really heavily. And we really have to, sign off and say good night to all of you guys who have been watching us in Kenya. And for those of you who've been watching us from other countries, Fia, you've been watching us from the UK. And I also heard from Lynn that she's following us from Australia.
You've muted. You've muted. You've muted.
We hope that you have a great weekend. Thank you, Susan. Sorry. Well, I don't know how I did that. It's just natural. I just go and tap. So yeah, like I was saying, Fia is watching us from the UK, and Lynn was watching us from the US. We didn't have very many people watching us today. It's probably the weather. It's really, really crazy all the time. Maybe we should come on a little bit earlier, but we'll try to come on a little bit earlier, maybe during the weekend, and try and finalize this issue, or maybe even just continue on Monday, because we still have time. So, how do economic inflation indicators impact on security and GBV? We didn't cover that too much, but we covered very important issues to do with recognizing the risks of familicide and looking at situations that have happened in Kenya. Kenya is soon becoming the femicide capital of Africa. In addition to having beautiful wildlife, it looks like we also have wild people who are also doing the wrong things. And we should learn also from the animal kingdom. We are lucky, we have beautiful animals. And the way I have been watching my soon pet monkey Abunwasi, him and his wife and his children, when they come to me, every other day, he comes first, then his wife, then his children, and then the children play around the compound. I've never seen such harmony. It's teaching me lessons, and we should learn from the animal kingdom how to treat each other in families, really honestly. Yeah, because we are becoming less than animals, very inhuman to each other. And we should also warn our friends, don't encourage your friends to go back into relationships which are dangerous, and encourage them, to get out as quickly as possible. And as for the government and the law system and the legal system, I believe that, at some point, some people have to be held accountable for what happens based on judgments, for example. Yes, even lawyers, even judges, they should be held accountable for what happens. Who's going to take accountability who's going to pay for the lives of those two children, Prince and his sister? Yeah? Because what? For the sake of the children? Even in African tradition, I know a lot of women who don't allow, some sort of level of, even animals. I see animals even pull their children a little bit far away from the male because they're different. Yeah, males and females are different. So I think, sometimes we should consider the cost and definitely get, some way to get justice for the families so that we can actually stop this in its tracks. So anyway, Susan, thank you so much again for doing all this research. And I'm sorry we don't have time. As you can see, Susan is a great workshop facilitator. She's used to doing this in workshops, 2 3 hour workshops, even half day workshops, whole day, 3 5 day workshops, but we don't really have the time for this in this particular thing. But Susan, I won't let you down. Next time we'll try to see how to show your PowerPoint, and maybe that's all we will do for one show. Just do the PowerPoint because it will take so much time. Yeah, and then we don't have to do the news roundup and things like that. So thank you very much, and wish you guys a good evening. Yeah, Susan will have the last word.
Yeah, there's no shame in asking for help, and just making that, there's no shame in asking for help and talking. You need to find, people need to find somebody they are confident who will help them to think through, not a sycophant, but a confident who will tell them, speak up and do the right thing, and just to keep people safe. So let's be each other's keeper, and share what we know, be alert to signs of abuse, because we could save a life that way.
Yes, Susan, I agree. Thank you very much, and have a good night. From Susan and Quimo, it's Kwaherini. Keep safe and keep dry. Bye bye. Okay, bye bye. Leave studio.